have pride.
I have pride.
I have purpose.
I have purpose.
I have power.
I have power.
Say what?
What you mean?
I have pride.
I have pride.
I have purpose.
I have purpose.
I have power.
I have power. What
Say
you got?
what? We got
pride, purpose, power.
You got
pride, purpose, power.
I got
pride, purpose, power.
We got
pride, purpose, power.
You got
pride, purpose, power.
I got
pride, purpose, power.
We got
pride, purpose, power.
Say what? I have pride.
I have pride.
I have purpose.
I have purpose.
I have power.
I have power.
Say what?
What you mean?
I have pride.
I have pride.
I have purpose.
I have purpose.
I have power.
I have power. What
Say
you
what?
got?
We got
pride, purpose, power.
You got
pride, purpose, power.
I got
pride, purpose, power.
We got
pride, purpose, power.
You got
pride, purpose, power.
I got
pride, purpose, power.
We got
pride, purpose, power.
Say what? I have pride.
I have pride.
I have purpose.
I have purpose.
I have power.
I have power.
Say what?
What you mean?
I have pride.
I have pride.
I have purpose.
I have purpose.
I have power.
I have power. What
Say
you
what?
got?
We got
pride, purpose, power.
You got
pride, purpose, power.
I got
pride, purpose, power.
We got
pride, purpose, power.
You got
pride, purpose, power.
I got
pride, purpose, power.
We got
pride, purpose, power.
Say what?
Okay.
I have pride.
I have pride.
I have purpose.
I have purpose.
I have power.
I have power.
Say what?
What you mean?
I have pride.
I have pride.
I have purpose.
I have purpose.
I have power.
I have power. What
Say
you got?
what? We got
pride, purpose, power.
You got
pride, purpose, power.
I got
pride, purpose, power.
We got
pride, purpose, power.
You got
pride, purpose, power.
I got
pride, purpose, power.
We got
pride, purpose, power.
Say what? I have pride.
I have pride.
I have purpose.
I have purpose.
I have power.
I have power.
Say what?
What you mean?
I have pride.
I have pride.
I have purpose.
I have purpose.
I have power.
I have power. What
Say
you got?
what? We got
pride, purpose, power.
You got We got
Pride, purpose, power.
you got
Pride, purpose, power.
I got
Pride, purpose, power.
we got
Pride, purpose, power.
you got
Pride, purpose, power.
I got
Pride, purpose, power.
we got
Pride, purpose, power.
say what? I have pride.
I have pride.
I have purpose.
I have purpose.
I have power.
I have power.
Say what?
What you
I have pride.
I have pride.
I have purpose.
I have purpose.
I have power.
I have power.
Say
What you
what?
Hey.
We got
Pride, purpose, power.
you got
Pride, purpose, power.
I got
Pride, purpose,
we got
pride, purpose, power.
you got
Pride, purpose, power.
I got
Pride, purpose, power.
we got
Pride, purpose, power.
say what? I have pride.
I have pride.
I have purpose.
I have purpose.
I have power.
I have power.
Say what?
What you
I have pride.
I have pride.
I have purpose.
I have purpose.
I have power.
I have power.
Say what?
Hey.
We got
Pride, purpose, power.
you got
Pride, purpose, power.
I got
Pride, purpose, power.
we got
Pride, purpose, power.
you got
Pride, purpose, power.
I got
Pride, purpose, power.
we got
Pride, purpose, power.
say what? I have pride.
I have pride.
I have purpose.
I have purpose.
I have power.
I have power.
Say what?
What you
I have pride.
I have pride.
I have purpose.
I have purpose.
I have power.
I have power.
Say what? We got
Pride, purpose, power.
you got
Pride, purpose, power.
I got
Pride, purpose, power.
we got
Pride, purpose, power.
you got
Pride, purpose, power.
I got
Pride, purpose, power.
we got
Pride, purpose, power.
say what? I have pride.
I have pride.
I have purpose.
I have purpose.
I have power.
I have power.
Say what?
What you
I have pride.
I have pride.
I have purpose.
I have purpose.
I have power.
I have power.
Say
What you
what?
We got pride, purpose, power.
You got
Pride, purpose, power.
I got
Pride, purpose,
we got
Welcome to Black Girl Freedom Week 2024, brought to you by the 1 Billion for Black Girls campaign and G4GC's Black Girl Freedom Fund. I'm Monique Koofson, President and CEO of G4GC. Black Girl Freedom Week is a week of action and celebration to demonstrate what's possible with an abundant investment in Black girls and gender-expansive youth's dreams, power, and leadership. This week is hosted by the 1 Billion for Black Girls campaign, which is mobilizing a $1 billion investment in Black girls over 10 years, and the Black Girl Freedom Fund, an initiative of grant makers for girls of color. This is our 4th annual week of virtual and accessible events. We begin today, Monday, February 12th, and will run through Sunday, February 18th, 2024. This week is intended to make visible the work that often goes under-recognized, erased, or undervalued, work led by and for Black girls and gender-expansive youth. Under this year's theme, A Future of Justice and Democracy, events throughout the week will spotlight urgent issues facing young people today, including Black liberation, reproductive justice, affirmative action, justice in schools, Title IX, civic engagement, beyond voting, and why investing in Black girls and gender-expansive youth is critical to creating just and democratic futures. Black girls and gender-expansive youth are uniquely positioned to identify and articulate the components of a just democracy, one that uses power to elevate fair policies, practices, and conditions that intentionally seek to heal and promote collective well-being. They forge a path to a more rigorous and inclusive practice of democracy so that we move beyond rhetoric and toward action and implementation of the notion justice for all. In light of the fact that 2024 is a big election year, we chose this year's theme to elevate and amplify the role that Black girls and gender-expansive youth play in defending, upholding, and advancing democracy. We're grateful to our partners in this work, including the co-founders of the 1 Billion for Black Girls campaign, which along with myself include Latasha Brown, Tarana Burke, Fatima Goss-Graves, Joanne Smith, Salamisha Tillett, Shahrazad Tillett, and Teresa Younger. We thank our co-investors, the special guest speakers for Black Girl Freedom Week, and the grantee partners who work alongside Black girls and gender-expansive youth across the country. We encourage you to engage with us all week long through our website and social media platforms. Toward that goal, please celebrate and invest in the organizations in your community that are led by and serving Black girls, femmes, and gender-expansive youth, not only during this week and during this month, but throughout the year. This week is as much about action as it is about celebration. We're asking you to demonstrate your commitment to Black girls and gender-expansive youth by making a donation or a commitment to invest in the Black Girl Freedom Fund or one of the amazing organizations working with and serving Black girls in your community. You can find out who some of these organizations are by visiting our Grantmakers for Girls of Color website or following us on social media. These organizations are the bedrock of our community and play a critical role in holding our electeds accountable to the justice we seek. Happy Black Girl Freedom Week.
What's up, y'all? Happy Black Girl Freedom Week. I'm Cedra, and I'm the host of Day One and the fund manager for Grantmakers for Girls of Color's Black Girls. Before I go any further, I'd like to acknowledge three very important people, our ASL interpreters for the day, Andrea, Brenda, and Sharon. Thank you so much. Black Girl Freedom Fund co-hosts Black Girl Freedom Week, along with the 1 Billion for Black Girls campaign. As you just heard from Monique Koofson, Black Girl Freedom Week will demonstrate what's possible when we abundantly invest in Black girls and gender-expansive youth. During the week, I'm looking forward to all the gems that our guests will be dropping. Conversations include civic engagement, reproductive justice, investment, education, and more. Why? Because every issue is a Black girl issue. Every issue impacts the lives of Black girls and gender-expansive youth, and they have the solutions to move us toward a more just and liberated future. Sessions are going to be recorded. So if you miss program on a specific day, you can always come back and watch it. And most importantly, if you want to enter today's giveaway, follow the instructions that just dropped in the YouTube comments. You'll definitely want to pay attention to see these Black girls and gender-expansive youth, to hear what they have to say, and to give us direction on what our collective work should be. Today's programming includes a necessary conversation about affirmative action with Ava Wharton and Stephanie Brown James. But first, a video from the Beautiful Project.
4 years ago, we had the opportunity to bring a cohort of girls and their families to New York City to witness their art hanging on the walls of the Metropolitan Museum of Art as part of our Pens, Lens, and Soul exhibit. One of the young artists shared how exciting and fascinating the experience was for her. She said, "I really just want Black girls and even women to accomplish their dreams, to continue them no matter what.
I believe in you. I believe in you. Thank you for believing in me.
I'm very excited to have my work in the Met. Like, I'm just, I feel surprised because I didn't realize it was this big of a thing. And then I was here and it's a thing, it's a big thing.
When Black youth see their creative work in places where they rarely see images that look like them or hear stories that reflect their experiences, they realize their own power to use their arts to transform their communities into places that support their needs and dreams. We invite you to be part of our beautiful community that is fostering healing and cultural change for Black girls, non-binary youth, and women.
Wow, much love and respect to the beautiful project for your work to use storytelling and visual arts to advance the healing and representational justice of Black girls, gender expansive youth, and women. So we're going to switch gears to our conversation about affirmative action, the facts, the fiction, and the fight forward. Ava Wharton, a first-year student at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, actually began her journey with the Beautiful Project during the summer of 2021 when she joined the organization's Youth Apprenticeship Program. The program combined emphasis on cultural activism and creative production allowed her to develop her voice as an advocate and artist through production of her cohort-produced short film, Our Need to Dream. And if some of you all joined us last year, you saw that film. Since graduating the Beautiful Project Apprenticeship Program, Ava has continued to represent its community through collaborations with grant makers for girls of color and has worked with the Beautiful Project's programming for rising youth changemakers. Stephanie Brown James is an experienced social entrepreneur and civic engagement strategist. She is the co-founder and senior advisor of The Collective, a network of 5 affiliated organizations, which includes the Collective PAC and Collective Future, a 501c4, dedicated to supporting Black candidates and the engagement of Black voters in the political process. Founded in August of 2016, the Collective has raised over $40 million, helped over 400 Black leaders win elected office in 2020, organized one of the largest Black voter engagement campaigns in the country, registering over 100,000 voters and providing over 100,000 free rides to and from the polls. Thank you so much, Ava and Stephanie, for joining. Let's get into it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are so excited to have you join this conversation as we talk about affirmative action. I think the theme that Black Girl Freedom Week has around a future for justice and democracy is so timely as we continue to see efforts to roll back democracy happening every single day. But I can guarantee you that this is going to be a conversation that's a bright spot because we have the brilliant Ava, who is here with us, and she is going to shed some light on her thoughts around what's happening around affirmative action, and I'll share some thoughts as well. So let's get into the conversation, and I want to just say, Ava, hey girl, like you are doing amazing work. You're a college student, you're at UNC, you're doing great organizing work in your community. So would just really love to hear about the work that you're doing and how and why affirmative action is an issue that is so near and dear to your heart and wanting to organize around it.
Thank you so much to Cedra and Stephanie for the lovely introduction. I'm very excited to be here and just so grateful that we're engaging in these necessary conversations that need to be had more. Plus, it's Black History Month, so what better way to spend it than engaging in these conversations? So, just to kind of begin introducing myself, my name is Viva Wharton. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a first year at UNC Chapel Hill. I was born in Long Island, New York, but currently live in Cary, North Carolina, which is where I grew up. And I would say that I've always carried a very deep passion for social justice and addressing advocacy issues. And so my time spent navigating different schools, whether it was in Cary or downtown Raleigh, an area that was more diverse and where I could see myself represented more in the classes I was taking, and in my peers and in my teachers and my professors. Those experiences were very shaping and have taught me so much about what it's like to be in this educational landscape where inequity is so present. So, just to begin saying that, I've carried a passion for creative work since I was a child. It usually began with drawings and doing art and that sort of thing. And now I've kind of taken my creative passions to the UNC Hussman School of Journalism and Media, which has allowed me to kind of engage in some of the journalistic work and develop more of a critical mindset when it comes to, how is it that Black people are treated in America? So, I'm always really interested in writing and discussing those issues. And yeah, so another big part of my experience at UNC has been my work on the UNC Affirmative Action Coalition, which we'll get into, but I guess I kind of just want to begin by talking about the Supreme Court decision. So, to my understanding of the case, Students for Fair Admissions filed a lawsuit against both Harvard and UNC Chapel Hill in November of 2014, arguing essentially that the consideration of race as a factor for admission is unconstitutional and provides an unfair advantage to students of color, especially Black students. Now, in July 2023, this is when we actually witnessed the reversal of established affirmative action policy. And in its replacement, we saw a culture of federally mandated colorblindness that was established within the educational community. Now, at the time, I remember my personal experience. I wasn't even at UNC yet officially. I had received my acceptance letter early 2023 in January. And at the time, July, when the decision was released, I was actually at UNC on campus, sitting at a lunch table full of girls for my orientation. And at that time, I'd gone through a full day of connecting with people and getting to learn about different programs at the school and just seeing that, this is a place where I belong. And, even sitting at the lunch table with a group of diverse girls, girls that look like me, girls that don't, and just enjoying being there. Yet to see the decision released, the first thing that I remember thinking is that they don't want us here. They don't value Black students. They systemically that this desire, I guess, to erase us from these spaces and not have our presence here. And so, ultimately, we've seen this criticism around the presence of Black students in these universities, and this idea that, maybe we're cheating to get in, that we're not qualified, when oftentimes not only do Black students, perform at very high rates when we're at these institutions, there have been many recorded cases where we'll exceed the performance of our non-Black peers. So we do succeed in these schools when we attend, and we do have a right to be there just like any other student. But looking at my phone, one of my friends and I were sitting at the lunch table talking about this, the breaking news, at the moment, it just was something that was very disheartening to see. And so, kind of jumping into Affirmative Action Coalition, I've kept very busy on campus, but UNC Affirmative Action Coalition was an organization that was established, I think, about a year prior to when the decision was released. So they had been doing some work in terms of advocating for educational equity. And I joined, I would say, about this past August. As the only freshman on the coalition, it's definitely been an experience making that transition onto campus. And I definitely feel like I'm learning so much from everyone else that's on the exec board with me. So I currently serve as the co-chair of policy on UNC's Affirmative Action Coalition. And our mission ultimately is to educate existing UNC students on the importance of racial equity and how to advocate for inclusive policies on campus, especially while considering the historical context of affirmative action. Additionally, a lot of the work that we do is centered in figuring out how can we create pathways for North Carolina students, especially, and just students from communities of color to apply to Carolina. How can we make that pathway a little bit more clear? We also work to condemn any and all attacks on diversity and student expression from various political actors and UNC administrators as well, some of whom are, at varying levels of tolerance of affirmative action policy and have different opinions on it, I suppose. And lastly, we ultimately strive to create spaces for students of historically resilient identities and allies to feel represented and heard. And so our responses through the UNC Affirmative Action Coalition have ranged from collaborations with faculty to better understand the implications for the decision, specifically on admissions. How has the admissions policies kind of changed and adapted in response to the federal mandate that was established in July? We've launched policy and communications committees to conduct and deliver research on the post-affirmative action landscape, and it's been an ongoing process of learning from our team. And lastly, our recent Educational Equity Summit this past January, which was really exciting. We had a great turnout of both students and faculty, as well as civil rights attorneys who have kind of had a hand in working to do the work of advocating. And, so being able to be in a space where we're having so many different viewpoints come together, whether it's students or faculty, affirmative action is a conversation that all different kinds of people from all different kinds of life need to be a part of. It's a really important conversation. And so, whether it's the Equity Summit, we hope to make that an annual thing, but these are everyday conversations that we're seeing and feeling and living, especially for someone like me who is a Black student at a predominantly white university.
That is excellent, Ava, the work that you're doing and that the students are doing on campus. It's interesting because I went to Howard University, and I know that, a lot of times there can be this really misconception that, students at HBCU campuses, for example, don't care about issues like affirmative action, when we know for a fact that this is an issue that impacts everyone. And so I love your last point about, at the end of the day, like, this is something that should resonate with everyone. And I know that the work that you all are doing on campus is definitely going to make a difference. One of the things I love about young people is that even though there can be barriers or obstacles that are put in front of young people, we're going to figure out how to organize and not, let this get swept under the rug. I was once a part of the NAACP Youth and College Division, organizing. I remember back when I was in college with our college chapter going up to the Supreme Court when this issue was addressed in the early 2000s, and to now 20 years later have this be an issue that not only has come up again, but that has been dismantled is completely disheartening. But I know that the work and organizing that you and so many others are doing is so vitally important. One of the things I want to hit on through this conversation is, there's about 4,000 public universities across this country. About 200 of them are highly selective universities. And to your earlier point, one, we already know that people of color, young people of color, are already disproportionately not a part of the student bodies at these institutions, especially the highly selective ones. And the ones that, are majority white campuses. And when you have students who even come from disadvantaged backgrounds or who come from, various different backgrounds and communities and economic status, we have seen that, those students, even though it may seem like they may have lower test scores or lower grades, they do succeed when they get to college. There was recently a study that Georgetown ran, which basically they wanted to see what would happen if race was removed from college admissions. And they definitely were able to show that we are going to have a lack of students of color who are on these campuses if that happens. And this is a pipeline issue because once you look at, your undergraduate universities, these are now folks who may not be able to get into for grad school, they may not be able to get into Harvard Law School because of perhaps where they went to undergrad. So this has, ramifications up and down the board. I'm wondering, Ava, Just for the students that are not like actively involved in like the coalition work, like what is the temperature on campus? Like what are you hearing amongst maybe your friends who aren't as, involved on campus or in organizations and they just trying to make it through the day? What are they feeling or saying, especially the students of color, as it relates to what the climate feels now about people of color and Black folks, especially being, accepted on campus or even wanted on campus, as you mentioned before.
Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. I would definitely say that, it really depends on where you go on campus and who you're talking to. I will say that, when it comes to these policies of diversity and equity, a lot of the time, as Black students on these predominantly white campuses, our main interaction with these concepts and ideas comes from, hearing these buzzwords. Oh, our university has established this DEI committee, or we have a department dedicated exclusively towards helping out with your needs. And yet ultimately, we kind of see this juxtaposition between, the promises that are kind of being delivered to us, whether it's through our emails, Happy Black History Month to the Black students, yet we're not necessarily always seeing that our needs are being cared for in that, our universities are telling us oftentimes that they value Black students. Yet on the other hand, we're not actually seeing, we make up less than 10% of UNC Chapel Hill and plenty of other, Ivy Leagues, other universities that are elite across the United States. So oftentimes, whether it's certain buzzwords such as like diversity being used and inclusion, but we're not seeing, required curricula of slavery. Students aren't required to have an understanding of critical race, to have an understanding of slavery and all the other, I guess, historical developments that have, culminated into this cultural landscape and just how we live and the privileges that we do have, all the access to different resources. And so, ultimately, I would say that for me, a big saving grace has been investment in some of the different African American and just Black cultural organizations on campus, whether it's like Sis to Sis, which is an organization specifically for Black girls on campus. That's been a very healing space. We have UNC's Black Student Movement. We have our Black campus paper, Black Ink, which goes back, I think back to the 70s, and so does BSM. So we have a presence on campus, and I would say that admittedly, I'm friends with everybody, y'all. But many of my friends are Black. And in some ways, like I would say that, Black students at these PWIs, there's this, thing on TikTok that's even talked about of, feeling like I'm at like a mini HBCU. Now, I don't think that being at a PWI is something that can compare to the distinct and historically rich experience of being at an HBCU. However, there is an equal form of beauty of the community that we have when we're together in a space where we aren't always represented. And so when it comes to affirmative action, I mean, I would say that my arrival on campus in August, upon that time, I was surprised that there wasn't much talk, of the policies, none of the changes. It seemed to be something that in many ways UNC just kind of quietly accepted. Of course, we're going to respect and adhere to the federal policy that's been implemented, but ultimately, aside from the students and the student organizers, I feel like there hasn't been much, advocacy around it. But ultimately, we know that, the importance of education is something that can't be understated. And this is something that, everyone should care about. Education bleeds into all of our lives, whether you're at the university or not, because it could be in the context of us gaining agency within this democracy, understanding the political landscape. And ultimately, education also serves as one of the greatest and most significant passages for upward mobility, whether that's socially, economically. And so for Black people to be denied access to the very institutions that we have historically been denied access to, that's something that's just incredibly jarring and something that I believe needs to be met head first, not only by students and the people who are already carrying the weight of that impact, but also those who are in privilege. And, I believe that I have privilege. It's a spectrum. It's something that we shouldn't be afraid of, but we should be open to recognizing the privileges that we do have and working to use them in order to provide more access and more opportunities for all students, and just making this more of a widespread conversation on campus. Where are my classes on affirmative action? Where are we seeing, where are the required texts? These are the things that, as a Black student, I would like to see, and just more advocacy and discussion around more transparency as well with faculty, about admissions. How's admissions changing? And I will say that it is a difficult conversation sometimes to navigate, even for like admissions officers who are also grappling with these changes, and for like our diversity department. But I just think that having that transparency and having those relationships established between the student body and between the faculty and higher people at higher levels is crucial for us to think about how we can engage in these equitable practices when it comes to our admissions, and just moving forward against this daunting political reality that is not having affirmative action to help protect us a little bit more.
Yeah, and the thing that's so wild that I can't help but think about is there's this notion as if Black people are have historically been on the same playing ground as everybody else. And it is mind-boggling to me that a program that was put in place, a policy that was put in place to make sure that we could, do something to help level that playing ground, that is ruled as unconstitutional, or is ruled as something that is no longer necessary. And I don't know, have you ever seen that graphic where they have the kids who are trying to look over the fence out into the playing field, and you have this one child that they can't see over the fence because they don't have the blocks to stand on to be able to get lifted up to see over the fence. That is exactly what we're talking about. But I think the other thing that is one of the points that you made about curriculum, we have definitely seen across the country, and we've seen in Florida, especially my home state of Ohio, we're seeing it now where, there are these efforts to dismantle equity and diversity programs and inclusion programs on college campuses. And again, the thought there is as if we're talking about a monolithic community of students. We are not. And so if we don't have the curriculum, the educators, the teachers, the professors, the speakers who represent a diverse set of ideas, that make sure that people do feel included, that they feel as though they can see themselves in what's being taught, and that they're being able to also learn different perspectives, we're really, doing our young people, our society as a whole. And I think that's why we're going to continue to see there's so much division in our country, because there aren't these places now where you can have, conversations about what makes us different and appreciating the differences. And we're only going to see that get worse as we have a decrease in Black students and students of color on these college campuses. And so, I think if anything, like, I want to just make sure that we can continue to advocate for young people, for our communities, for our parents. We have to speak up. We have to speak up. We have to make sure that our voices are heard strongly on this issue. If you're not going to or know who's on the board of trustees for your university, and being able to have conversations with the administrators and figuring out who are your state legislative folks who make decisions when it comes to public institutions of higher education in the state, like these are the things that we need to know. And I want to kind of turn a little bit to this year as a presidential election year, and I'm wondering, Ava, do you feel like this is an issue that will galvanize young people and students to go vote? Do they see the connection between this policy specifically and who we elect into office? I think let me just say, it must be noted that we have a very unbalanced Supreme Court. We have 7 Republican appointed and justices on the court, and so we have a very skewed sense of ideas on the court now. It's also ironic that most of the Supreme Court justices went to Harvard University Law School, which now will have their admissions impacted because of this decision. But yeah, just curious, Ava, if you think this is going to be an issue that, you know, students think about as they are hopefully planning to go to the polls to vote this year.
Well, just speaking, as someone who and a little bit on kind of the younger age, I guess, for my, grade group. Ultimately, I think that, as you said, having that kind of political awareness and like reading the news, being, really understanding of like who are your trustees, who are the people who are in power, both locally, on your campus, in your state, in your local area, as well as having an awareness of, kind of the, politics happening at the national sphere. Both are equally important. I will say that when it comes to many issues within the Black community, something that I guess I perceive that has been kind of negative is that oftentimes and there now I will say so many advocates are pushing to do the work and are continually, working to make sure that these issues are, remaining in the forefront of conversation, who are doing the work and making sure that people aren't forgetting about things that are pertaining to, just different issues pertaining to Black girls, Black people, and our experiences. Um, However, I will say that something that's been kind of disappointing, and especially with, I guess, the rise of like social media over time, has been that within the Black community, so much of our advocacy has been rooted not in proactive measures, but more so it's been reactive. So when it comes to George Floyd, I know that many people have sat down and kind of worked to discuss, what is it that made us march out in the streets, and what is it that made us all mobilize, all across the United States and even in different countries, to advocate and mobilize around the issue of police brutality in the US. And for many reasons, the media is going to have such a huge impact in that, as of course, teens and stuff, Gen Zers, I guess, we're constantly consuming that. And so, for us to be at home on our phones, some of us have our virtual classes, I guess. We have time on our hands in many cases. And so, we're seeing many of us unfortunately witness the images of in the videos of George Floyd. We were given that kind of emotional moment. And for many people, that is what allowed them, whether you're Black or white, that common human element is what took so many people to the streets in order to kind of advocate around this issue. Now, unfortunately, when it comes to affirmative action, whereas we see like the issue in Palestine right now, that's something that is obviously at the forefront of so much conversation and has taken, such a center in our, political atmosphere. Whereas affirmative action, in many ways, I feel like it's something that is swept under the rug because people don't really understand it. And I mean, the source of like, I guess, journalism that I've witnessed on YouTube is a lot of people will go around on their college campuses and do these kind of little interviews. They'll ask people with like a tiny mic oftentimes, hey, what are your thoughts on affirmative action? Do you think we need it? And hey, I mean, it's journalism to me in a way, and oftentimes people, they won't really understand the issue. Their responses can be varied, but people don't really have a clear understanding either of what affirmative action is, and don't really understand how, even like legacy admissions are, different, or how they should be criticized. And so I would say that a lack of understanding is often at the root of why people aren't going out to the polls and, more motivated to vote around that issue. But ultimately, there's an importance of kind of that narrative and, for us to understand exactly how assaults on our lives as Black people can occur. Yes, we see things like police brutality that are widely, I guess, popular conversation. But we need to address forms of like transphobia, homophobia, sexism, and racism, other more discrete ways. Like we need to also be addressing our school to prison pipelines. We need to be discussing other systemic forms of inequity that are ultimately, I guess, a little bit more discrete, but just as impactful in hindering progress as a.
And let me pause you for a second, Ava, because you mentioned something that's super important, and that is just the fact that so many people don't know what affirmative action is. And and I do think that, and I love what you said earlier about privilege. There is a scale of privilege. As a college educated folks, we have a set of privileges. And, I think it's so easy to, with anybody, kind of just get caught up in like what your own day-to-day experience is. But even for those folks who haven't been to college, or, who don't have children yet in college, we know that this is an issue that they should care about, but they may not see it in their everyday lives. So I wonder if you have ideas on ways in which we can talk to communities that may not feel as though this is important for them. Like, in what ways can we, do outreach and, make sure that this is, a galvanizing issue for all of us, regardless of if you went to college or planning to go to college or know anyone who went to college. What can we do to just talk about this better in our communities? Any thoughts you have on that?
Mhm. Well, I think that beginning with those who are in college, I think it's really important to kind of begin with this sort of investigation of even the toxic and competitive culture that exists around
Mm.
college admissions and just entering to college. Whether you're like maybe a first generation college student and you're just kind of sitting around wondering, like, what is this process going to be like? Maybe handling it in many ways on your own and kind of taking this brave step, moving into higher education. It's something that can be very daunting. And, with the competitive kind of nature of admissions today, it can be very stressful and just something where, you may not feel like you belong nearly as much. But ultimately, I think that, we need to eliminate these barriers to equitable higher education by, actively addressing, the ways that these spaces aren't always made to be inclusive and aren't, always made to, create access for Black people to kind of get in. And so I guess when it comes to, Black people who are actively applying, of course, we're naturally going to be a little bit more involved and a little bit more, have a little bit more experience in that realm. Whereas just general communities, it's still equally important for them to care and, like, I guess, be involved. But it's something that, it's difficult because everyone's coming from different places. But we need to consider factors such as class, if there are any language barriers present. Like, the Black diaspora is so diverse, and so we're all coming to this space with so many different experiences. Whether you're African and maybe you're an immigrant, you need to understand that you're equally connected to the diaspora, and that upon, entry to college, that's going to be a certain experience for you that, could be shared with a Black American student or could be different. But just understanding that the space is one that, is holding people from so many different identities and so many different experiences with education, that we need to really work to facilitate spaces in our communities where those sorts of conversations can happen. And the best way to do that, it's kind of difficult to pinpoint exactly, but ultimately, I just think having that kind of open-mindedness and making this sort of education accessible to all different kinds of people, and being very intentional about the narrative around it. This is not Black people who are trying to cheat. This is not Black people who do not deserve to be in these spaces. These are Black students who have the potential to grow, many of which are qualified, many of which, all of which have potential, and we deserve to be in these places that we have labored to produce. So we deserve to
Love that.
have those resources.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I'm reminded, I saw on Instagram last week, there's this comedian I follow, and he was doing, it wasn't a parody, but he was talking about this politician, who shall remain nameless. And he broke it down in such a relatable way, like this kind of big issue of what was happening on Capitol Hill. And I was just thinking, like, man, if only we had more of that, if only we had more of like the culture infused in how we talk about issues, and not have it where, we're only talking about affirmative action if you're on a college campus. But yeah, we're going to talk about it when we go to get coffee with friends, or when we're online and, we're looking at some of the influencers who may talk about pop culture one day and they may talk about affirmative action the next, like just this infusion of issues in everyday life, I think is super important. And then you had mentioned on campus, your group, I think you said Sis to Sis was the Black girls organization on campus. Yeah, like I'm also constantly reminded that, throughout history, really, Black folks have always been there to support and teach and engage Black folks. And I think that is vitally important. I have a 6 and 8 year old. We make sure that with our little friend circle, we're talking about Black history with the kids. We're making sure that there are topics about Black history that's included in their schools, and in church that we're focused on that as well. And I just think we can't lose sight of Black folks have to make sure we are continuing to talk within our community and engaging each other and lifting each other up as much as possible. Um, and so with that, I do have a final kind of question or thought. And I've been thinking a lot about this with Black Girl Freedom Week, which everybody please continue to tune in all week to the wonderful content that Black Girl Freedom Week 2024 is going to provide. There's going to be wonderful topics throughout this entire week. Just continue to support this great organization as much as you can. But I was thinking about, what does Black Girl Freedom look like for me? And the ability for us as Black girls, Black women, to be authentically ourselves and have opportunities to grow and to thrive is what my dream is. And that as we're doing that individually, we are collectively supporting each other doing that as well. That would be what my vision is for Black Girl Freedom. And I'm wondering, Ava, what's your vision for what Black Girl Freedom looks like?
That is so beautiful. And quite honestly, I definitely echo that same sentiment of, just Black girls and Black people knowing that we are enough just as we come, that there is space for us in these institutions. And, that is something that we need to kind of, not only walk in, but demand recognition of on a systemic level. I believe that we need to be embraced by the world in a way that isn't simply a colorblind approach, but rather see that in all of our color and all of our light and all of our loudness, we bring so much to the table. And especially when it comes to affirmative action specifically, I think that there's this idea that, Black people being in these educational spaces is arguable. It's a good thing because of the fact that, it's allowing us to be challenged in our perspective, and it promotes kind of this diversity of thought, which I believe is true, and that's a very popular narrative surrounding affirmative action. However, there's a much more important argument here, and that is that affirmative action is working to serve to rectify the history of slavery and essentially to give Black people and Black girls what we are owed. So at the end of the day, just knowing that we have ownership in these spaces. In many ways, we physically built these spaces, and we bring so much to the world, whether we are big or small, loud or quiet. We speak volumes in our silence. But when we come together in community, we are so powerful. And so, to me, Black Girl Freedom dreaming is just working to stand in all of our power and coming together as a community to, just look to the future and to never stop, because it's never been an option for us. So.
Never been an option. And we're going to continue to fight until we are all free. I think that is a wonderful response, Ava. I know we are getting ready to close our conversation. I have a closing thought, but just want to see if there's anything else you would like to say before we get ready to close.
I don't think so. I just want to say I encourage everyone watching to continue to invest in organizations like Grant Makers for Girls of Color, like the Beautiful Project, an amazing Durham-based organization that I've had the pleasure to be a part of, and ultimately just to continue listening to Black girls and amplifying our voices.
And I'm going to echo that and say, and support groups like the Collective. We are working to, make sure we have equity and representation of Black people on all levels of government. And my closing thought would be, elections matter. Who we place in positions of power matter. We like to say to change the laws, we must change the lawmakers. And right now in America, over 90% of all elected officials are white, 95% of all prosecutors are white. There's no way we're going to have equitable policy solutions that advance all of our communities, especially the Black community, if we don't have folks who respect, reflect, represent the communities that we come from and have a desire to move us all forward and to move us towards freedom. And so please know that your individual vote, it matters. And if you're voting and you're used to voting, somebody that you know doesn't vote or isn't planning to vote, and they think it's not important. But we get decisions like this one in the affirmative action case, like what happened with Dobbs and a woman's right to choose no longer being law of the land. Decisions like that happen because people were elected and people were appointed and people were placed in positions to make these decisions possible. Let's take our power. Let's strive for our freedom by making sure that folks who want to see an equitable vision for America and for the world, that they are the ones who are making decisions. So it's election year, y'all. There's general elections, primary elections. Please get out and vote in every single election and take folks to the polls with you. Register folks, take them to the polls, and be that champion for democracy so that we can see, a strong future for justice and democracy in this country. So with that, thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. And again, please tune in to all of the programming that you will see this week for Black Girl Freedom Week 2024, and spread the word and continue to support these wonderful organizations. Thank you. Turn it over.
Thank you so much, Ava and Stephanie, for such a rich and powerful conversation. I know two things that are taken with me, specifically something that Ava said about getting past the buzzwords, right? So we need to really understand what policies are and how they impact our day-to-day lives. Additionally, Ava was like, we deserve to be in the spaces that we labor to produce. Ashe on that. And Stephanie left us with something really to think about, not only that our elections matter, but that to change the law, we have to change the lawmakers. So thank you again to your contribution for the conversation. And thank you as well to Brenda, Sharon, and Andrea for being with us today. Before we close, time to announce our first giveaway. And the winner of today's giveaway is Takiara from North Carolina. Takiara, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. If not, please don't come after me in the comments. Much love to North Carolina. We hope to see you tomorrow for day 2 of Black Girl Freedom Week 2024, where we'll be talking about money, investment, economic power, entrepreneurship, and we'll have a range of different conversations, more giveaways. So please do what you need to do to register, to sign in, and bring other people with you tomorrow and throughout the rest of the week. Thank you again so much for being with us. Happy Black Girl Freedom Week.